all right? Yep. No. Is it all right if I stay here? Okay. I'll just open the meeting. We don't have any apologies or leave of absence. Item 1, co-option of a committee member. Obviously, we don't need to do that. Confirmation of minutes. Can I have somebody move that, please? Thank you. Councillor Dutta. Any dissent? Being none, we'll move to item 3, consideration of supplementary items. Being none, we'll move to number 4, indications of pecuniary and conflicts of interest. Are there any? Being none, we'll move to 5, transfer of agenda items. Would anybody like to transfer any items? No. Being none, we'll move on to number 6, report 6.1, the 2020-21 International Student Ambassadors. And we have Boshra Yasamidi to introduce the International Student Ambassador Shalinda and Kelly. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Just while they're taking a seat, so this is a program that we've been running as a council now for the last 6 years, and so we annually seek expressions of interest for student ambassadors for a 12-month period. It's been a really, it's a really pleasing and rewarding program for us, and I think for the student ambassadors, but for the wider community. So. I'll ask Boshra, one of my team, to introduce our ambassadors in the program and the presentation.
Thank you, Tim. It is my great privilege to introduce Shalinda and Kelly, 2 of 10 of our international student ambassadors for this year, who are actually finishing their term at the end of this month. And they have very kindly come to present basically their year, what they have done, and what they have achieved, or what they have felt this program has benefited them. So, and any insights that they had from the program overall. So I'll just hand over to them. Shalinda and Kelly.
All right. Hi everyone. Thank you for inviting us today. And my name is Kelly and Shalinda, as Boshra mentioned, and we are here to share our experience as being part of the International Ambassador Program at City of Hobart. So we are a group of 10 students coming from 8 different countries and studying 7 different courses at the University of Tasmania and TASTAFE and other institutions as well. And we came together to bring positive and inclusive community and within the diverse cultures, and also the cultures unique to Hobart. So our program's aim was to make Hobart an inclusive and welcoming city for international students and migrants. And in doing so, we focused on supporting international students and migrants to adapt to the new living environment, and to get to know the local culture, and to break down the cultural and language barriers. After brainstorming our ideas, we came up with an idea to host a series of workshops with a theme of life in Hobart, and these workshops included Conversation Cafe, Desert Time, and the Amazing Race. And we also assisted in various other volunteering opportunities, including Harmony Week, citizenship ceremonies, block parties, and City of Hobart Seniors Week, and also other community organisation events. And as a part of promoting our workshops, we decided to create a Facebook page called Hobart Multicultural Community to bring the communities more together during the COVID-19 period. This is our first workshop, and this was aimed to provide more information about the local culture and also the local attractions as well, and then the local slangs as well. And we could actually learn a lot of new things as ambassadors as well, not just the participants, and we wanted to provide opportunity for the participants to ask any questions they had in mind. So we actually received really positive feedback from this event, and we could also learn a lot as well. this is our second event, which is a baking workshop called Dessert Time. And we wanted to create an event that is fun and interactive and a fun way to learn about Australian food culture. So we baked two most well-known Australian desserts, including Anza biscuits and pavlova, and also other foods from different countries as well, which was mochi from Japan and also rice pudding from Colombia. And now I'll hand over to Shalinda.
Thank you, Kelly. So our third event was supposed to be an outdoor event, which we named it as the Amazing Race. So the aim of this event is to bring introduce Australian sports such as cricket, footy and rugby to international students in Hobart. So we plan our activities well in advance. We did all our marketing, and but we didn't have enough registrations for this event. So one of the main reason is that the weather. We planned it during the end of April, so the winter was approaching, and also the timing was not good for the international students due to their exams and other assignments at the university. So eventually we had to postpone this event. So we named our second event as Sportsmania, which is a continuation of the Amazing Race. So for this event, which is also an outdoor activity, like we partnered with Cricket Australia, AFL Tasmania and UTAS sporting clubs, and we received large number of registration to this event, and we did our marketing and we did our promotions well in advance, but on the day of the event, due to the unexpected weather, we had to unfortunately cancel the event, and we actually planned it to the third time as well, but we only had like 2 weeks for the event, but we couldn't find enough, we couldn't find grounds within a short period of time, and our term as ambassadors was coming to an end. So unfortunately we had to cancel this event as well, but we almost pulled it off. So the next slide is one of the videos that we created to promote this event. I'll just So throughout the past whole year, we learned a lot of things from this program. One of the most important learning or the development is the development of our soft skills such as teamwork, leadership, and communication and organizational skills. And also we got to partner with a lot of other organizations such as Study Tasmania, Migration Resource Center, and other organizations, and we develop good connections within these organizations. We believe these connections will come in handy in our future. And also we learn the importance of engaging with local communities, and further we believe we discover our hidden talents by organizing these events. These are some of the thoughts of our other ambassadors. To the last one. Finally, we would like to thank City of Hobart for giving us this opportunity, for giving us this opportunity to be ambassadors for the past years, and especially we would like to thank Bosra and Sophie for their continuous support and guiding us all throughout the year. And we would also like to thank our local volunteers and international volunteers who help us in planning and successfully conducting our events. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was a wonderful presentation, and I'm really glad that you had a great time with Boshra and Sophie. They're wonderful people, and some really wonderful learning outcomes there as well, breaking barriers and all those things. Anybody have any? Yes.
So, what do you think you'll do next? Will this help lead to the next chapter for you guys in Hobart?
We believe the experience we got from volunteering as ambassadors can be transformed into our workplace as well, with the learnings that we got from like the communication skills, the organization skills. It was a great learning for us, and we believe we can hoping to find work in after. So we all of us are graduating at the end of this semester. So we are planning to get into workforce and utilize those skills.
Mm-hmm. So make sure you get a nice reference. So. Mayor or whoever. Yep.
Any further questions?
Thank you very much for.
I just have a question,
Yes.
maybe through you, Chair, to with regards to this program. What's the process for selecting people on this student ambassador? What's the criteria?
There's an application process every year that goes out with a position description and selection criteria, and applicants are, it's like almost like an actual job process, because it is quite competitive, and so participants need to address the selection criteria, submit their CV and a cover letter, and we shortlist and have an interview panel as well, we select through that means, and we also, while we assess according to the criteria, we're also recruiting for diversity as well, across diversity of nationality, educational institution, gender, and study courses, so that we can, a big part of this program is for us to be able to have the connections with our international student body across various institutions, to understand their needs and be able to provide that or the opportunity of engaging with our city through our programs in this volunteer program, but also to work with the ambassadors to identify the needs that they are seeing within the international student body, and across the various experiences, to come up with little 1 or 2 projects that can help make the city a more welcoming and inclusive space.
Any further comments, questions? No, being none, can I have somebody move that we receive a note? Councillor Harvey, thank you very much. Any dissent? No, being none, I consider that carried. Thank you. Thank you very much for coming in. Thank you. Thanks very much. We'll move on to 6.2, City of Hobart Grants Program, and before I have somebody move the motion, I'll have the Director give us a bit of an overview, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this before you tonight is the annual grants round. So we have you recall we have a quick response program, an annual program, biannual program, and a biennial program. That's not confusing at all. So tonight before you we have the annual program. Now there are actually 4 annual grants that come out under this program. Only 2 are here for approval of committee and then on to council. Council has previously made the decision that any grant under the value of $20,000 is delegated to the CEO. And so you'll see in the report that both the Community Christmas Carols and the Urban Sustainability Grant will go through a process where they're approved by the CEO. So the decision before you tonight is around the Creative Hobart Major Cultural Organisations and the Event Partnership grant streams. over the years we've put a lot of effort into the governance around these programs, and so it is a highly competitive process, and there's a reasonably rigorous, well not reasonably, there is a rigorous assessment process that involves a panel, and we always have an external member on the assessment panel, and that external panel representative is drawn from the relevant sort of field of expertise, if you like, that involves the grant. So before you tonight, we're recommending approval in the major organisations grant stream for the TSO, for TMAG and the Theatre Royal. And then under the events stream, we're recommending Festival of Voices. TMAG put in a specific event proposal, so they've also been recommended for approval under that stream, which is consistent with the policy. The Australian Antarctic Festival, the Australian Institute of Architects, Beaker Street, and also for Vandemonium Touring. So Chair, that's the decision that is before you. I've got the grants team here if there are any specific questions around the process.
With the external representatives, I know in a small environment it's hard to choose people who have no conflicts of interest, and I see that there was a noted conflict of interest with respect to the TSO, in that Joel Lipson, who's associated with Dark Lab, presumably excused himself from that process. I don't know what the process was, but I'm assuming. But certainly Dark Lab is involved in lots of things and has relationships, including with Detached and others, and I'm not sure who was responsible for Beaker Street.
Beaker Street is a Science and Innovation Festival.
Yeah, who was sort of running it and operating it and so on.
Information, Louisa?
Through you, Chair, they are an independent, not-for-profit organisation that run the Beaker Street Festival, but it is hosted by TMAG, so they're just the host venue, but Beaker Street is an organisation.
So when I went to a thing at Detached, and everybody was wearing Beaker Street documentation, and anyway, I'm not being critical at all, but I just, these people have tentacles in everything, and we've just got to be really, really careful that we choose somebody that's not associated with an organisation that's likely to have either a perceived or an actual conflict of interest. And I think I think the perceived notion is probably one that's going to hinder appointments more than anything really. So.
Chair, through you. Look, we're really mindful of that, and we're certainly very clear with the panel that they've got to take that quite seriously, because it does otherwise undermine the credibility of the grant program.
I had some understanding that Mona, Brian Ritchie, people like that had something to do with Beaker Street as well. And of course, there's a close relationship between.
Yes, I'm actually not aware of that.
So
Mona
I mean,
had
and often it's not easy to find these things out, but I think that was the case. So anyway, we just our due diligence with respect to the external representatives has to be scrupulous if we're talking about large amounts of money.
And it's a continual opportunity for improvement for us, absolutely.
Can I have somebody move that item, please?
Happy to do so.
Harvey, any further questions, comments? No, being none, I'll move that that item and vote on it, please. We'll move on to 6.3, reporting and recording of hate crimes. And before I ask elected members to move it, I'll have the Director give us an overview.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Look, this is on there in terms of recommendation for receiving and noting, but I'm quite happy for committee to have a discussion. Sometimes we would just pop something like this on the hub for information for elected members, but I did feel it was sufficiently important to put on the committee agenda. The community life team have been, I guess, working with various sectors of the community for some time, and have become aware of this issue that is coming up, and it really revolves around, while there might be an assault, for example, the actual ability of the police or others to record what might have motivated that assault really doesn't exist. It's not data that is actually captured or required, save for one area in the Sentencing Act which does allow, if a crime has been committed and it's considered that race was a factor in that crime, the Sentencing Act does allow that to be taken into account as an attribute in sentencing that offender. But there are no other attributes that appear in the Sentencing Act. Clearly, with the growth of our community, there is certainly some evidence that the issue of hate or bias or racism, sadly, is becoming more commonplace in the community. And so the groups that the team have been working with have been noting this. And I think one of the good things about this process is that through the work that both Kimbra Parker and Scott Davis have been doing is really facilitating these groups to come together and have a chat. And I understand there's been 2 or 3 meetings now, and each time more groups have attended the meeting. We now have Professor Nicole Asquith from UTAS, who's an expert in this area, now also participates in this group. And I think the pleasing thing from our perspective is this group has become reasonably self-organised, hasn't needed council to particularly facilitate it or chair it. We've simply allowed them to come together. You would have seen there that the group has now written to both the Attorney General and the Minister for Police to ask for a meeting to have a discussion. And I understand through Kimbra and Scott that in fact the ministers have agreed for a meeting to take place. I don't think the date has been set yet, but that's new information that's just come in since we popped this item on the agenda. So really, Chair, it was with that background in mind, we thought it was worthy of at least putting on the agenda for committee to see whether there was any desire to have a further discussion and an acknowledgement of the issue in our community.
Great, thank you very much. Can I have somebody move the item, please?
Happy to move, but also, so there is evidence like the hate crime's a regular occurrence by the sounds of it, but we just don't have the data to actually demonstrate that this is a hate crime or whatever that evidence needs to be. So, for instance, that incident, I heard recently there was an incident in Wellington Walk, and people who informed me of it said it was, they didn't use the word hate crime, but they said it was racism. So and is there a difference, racism, hate crime? So it's in the same realm, same thing.
Scott can address.
Through you, Chair. So there are a range of crimes that can occur that can. Internationally, the word hate is generally used. In Tasmania police refer to it as prejudice-related crime. Other jurisdictions use the word prejudice. Some use hate. Some use bias. So it sort of allows for a wider scope of language to be able to use and to incorporate the different sorts of offences that can occur.
Well, I'd like to be kept up to date with what goes on with this. So we've got a reporting mechanism, and not every 6 months. I'd like to, have a closer eye on it every maybe 3 months or something. I don't know whether you'll be meeting that often or not, but I'm keen to understand how this is impacting Hobart and how frequent it is.
Yes, we understand that at the moment it sounds like that MCOT is tending to take the lead for the group. And so certainly again through Scott and Kimbra we're attending the meetings and quite happy to keep committee informed.
Yeah, we could get a regular update, I'd appreciate that, yeah. I don't know how regular it needs to be because you've just started the meetings, I guess, so yeah, if you just take down notice, I guess.
Well, it might be useful, Chair, through you, once we have some understanding of how the meeting with the relevant ministers went, perhaps that's an opportune time to report back.
And sorry, one more thing, and this is not just about race, it's also about gender, it's all sorts of...
Disability.
Yeah.
Any further comments? Thank you. Yes, Councillor Reynolds, yes.
Hi.
Lord Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, look, I saw this and I wanted to just comment on it because a few people have raised with me over a number of months similar concerns, and I'm pretty worried about it. I think when you see something on your city agenda about hate crimes, it is something that we do need to take very seriously. I mean, I think it's great if the group is just ticking along, you know, having the networking events, and that's great, but I do wonder whether it's worth us stepping it, bringing it up a level and taking a bit of a leadership by convening a round table or something with those groups and who we think might be sort of some key influencers who need to be influenced about this, and also just to sort of ensure that the elected members or the chair of this committee are much more sort of showing that they're responsive to this very serious challenge, because it certainly was raised with me just on the weekend. Someone had experienced a really awful attack in the mall. They were a person of colour themselves, but they'd seen a couple that they didn't know, but they saw them being bashed, and it's really sort of shaken them up. They work in retail in the city of Hobart and catch buses home, and they feel unsafe. And that's not the first time that I've had a story like that in recent months. So I do feel that, I mean, we've done good work on this over the years, but I do feel like maybe we've kind of should come together and just bring a few people together and see what else we should be doing or could be doing in the sort of COVID, post-COVID environment, because I think COVID has changed some of the dynamics and how people are being treated and viewed. So yeah, I wonder whether there might be somebody on the committee who might move that as an amendment. We used to also be part of the Racism Stops With Me campaign, and that seems to have dropped off, and I know we've gone with the more positive message of Hobart welcomes all, but I do feel perhaps that, and I think that program and that messaging should continue. It's lovely, but I think maybe in some of the places where we're picking up a lot of attacks, we need a much stronger message. I noticed that the City of Sydney recently put up these little street signs in their major streets. It just sits above the street sign, and it just says "Racism Not Welcome." It's just like a metal sign that goes on the street signs, and it's much, it's a much more direct message. So yeah, would someone be on the committee be willing to move something like that?
Yeah, would you like somebody from the committee to move, just to get a better understanding of it, an amendment to have the chair, for example, of this committee go to and attend these meetings, and to have and perhaps report back to the council at least every 2 to 3 months? Would somebody like to move that?
That sounds good.
No, through you, Chair.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't want to move an amendment when I spoke before, because I see that this is just getting going, and I'd like it to, consolidate what they're doing, and then come back to us with some information, and then we can maybe look at some options of how we as the elected reps, might like to respond.
Yeah,
so that's why I didn't push anything before.
Director, do you have anything?
Can I suggest maybe a first step, because obviously this group now does have some momentum of its own. Perhaps we can invite, if committee's willing, Duncan Spender, who's the CEO of MCOT, and perhaps also Professor Asquith, to come along to the next committee meeting, and then they could talk to committee themselves about what's going, and have they had the meeting with the minister? How did that go? But perhaps also we could have a more direct conversation with them about, well, how can council best support?
Yeah.
How do you feel about that, Lord Mayor? I'd be happy with that approach, just so we get a feel for it before we start asking, and directing the committee to do particular things. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine, I think. Just that it is urgent. I mean, this is something that people are experiencing every day.
I agree. Yeah.
And I know we're waiting a month, and but yeah, it makes, if the group can come and brief the committee, and if they can be encouraged to sort of suggest where they feel council could help, that might help us make some sort of decisions. And I do feel like we need to review what we might want to do for Harmony Week, and maybe making it a little bit more, a bit firmer in terms of our commitment against racism.
Fox, did you have something to add? Is that your hand up?
Yeah, thanks. I was actually going to say something about Harmony Week too, but I was just going to ask when the next meeting of this working group would be, and if it would be appropriate for you as chair of this committee to attend as well.
Yeah. Scott, do we know, has another date been set at this stage?
For the working group?
Yes.
No, there has not been another date set. And I think I'd like to add through you, Chair, that it's not our working group. We've brought community members together, and then they've formed a group that is continuing to work. So it's not a City of Hobart entity.
So in that case, you might wish to write to whoever's chairing it and ask whether or not you could sit in on a meeting, and and then because I mean, I agree. We may well need to do something, and if Professor, I can't remember her name, Asquith has experience in the UK, then she may well know what it is that we could do that's useful. What I would hate to do is to spend a whole lot of money on a gesture. I mean, signs are great, but you know, we've got a sign already as you drive into the city. I'm pretty sure there's a sign there saying we don't like racism, or there's something along those lines. Yeah. So, and I'm not sure that that's made any difference at all. So, I really think it's important that we understand what will actually make a difference, and I don't feel that I'm in a position where I know that. So, and whereas this group might, and particularly somebody who studied it, she may well say, yep, okay, you can put signs up, that will make absolutely no difference, but if you do this, it will make a difference. And that's something we could try and ascertain before we make any decisions.
So just to summarise then, perhaps we could add two things if the committee wishes. Number one, that you write to the working group and perhaps ask if I can attend as the chair, the next one. And then number two, we have for the next meeting, we have the professor and...
Well, actually, what I would prefer is for you to report back to the next meeting and tell us what your recommendation is, having talked to them. You'll have an opportunity to ask questions there, including what you think, you know, ask them what they think council could do, and you can bring it back as chair. And then once we know what, you know, how they're feeling, we don't want to put them on the spot and sort of make them feel obliged to come and talk to us when they don't really want to.
Or until they're ready.
Until they're ready, that's right. So you'll get a feeling about what it is, and they might say, yeah, we don't want to do that now though. We'd like to do that in 3 months' time after we've done this, this, and this. So you can feed us back, and then if they want to come sooner rather than later, yeah, great.
Can I just add, sorry, through you, Chair, an important part of the working group has been inclusion. So it has not centred on one particular area that is experiencing hate or bias. It's working as a collective, recognising that a whole range of different communities, not just race, experience prejudice and bias. And so anything that we do needs to reflect the fact that it is occurring across a whole range of different communities.
Yeah. Yes, Councillor.
Chair, the director, does this go to the council, to full council?
No, this is only a committee delegation.
I'm comfortable with that.
Ultimately it will.
Well, because if it did, that the information be received and noted, I'd hate to have a debate with lots of amendments pushing us in a direction that's maybe not sensible. So I'd much rather come back to the committee with something solid on, you know, that's been discussed previously and worked out, you know, rather than have this go all over the place.
Councillor Data.
Thank you, Chair. Just an observation I'm making here. Firstly, it appears to me that there is a working group, which is a different group, and then also mentions about other groups over the past few months. And I'm just wondering, CDET is also playing an important role to include them, especially with a lot of African community in there. I think it's an important element to have. Just a suggestion or observation I'm making, that's all, if it's possible, because the more inclusive we are, the better it is.
Perhaps you'll...
Yeah, through you, Chair. Absolutely, it's something that has been discussed amongst the group about how they explore including other communities as part of the conversation. The thought was initially that to keep it small, keep it manageable, and try to get the meeting with the ministers and the Attorney General, which has occurred. And then once that has occurred, then there is an education component that they are talking about. And that's when they really want to start going out to wider communities and having a conversation about the impact of prejudice crimes in Tasmania.
But, Chair, the point I was making is just to have a person in the decision making, instead of just communicating or conveying. But if you have a person in that process who is representative more, and I think, the CDET president would be a vital person to have with his linkage with the African communities. That's what I'm saying.
But I think the point has been made that we don't have control over the membership of this group. So the African community would need to make a representation themselves to be included, and not rather than us try and muscle them in.
Yeah, that's why I said I'm making an observation. So the observation I'm making here is this is a working group, isn't it? That's a different group which we don't have any control or appointment powers. But the other one, further up where it says you have, in the last 2 months, you have these groups attending. I'm saying this is a different group or it's the same group? That's what I'm saying. Same group. All right, okay. Yeah, that's where my clarification in my observation was. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Sorry, Chair, one final thing too, just been pointed out to me. One of the good things about having this group at arm's length at the moment is means that they can participate in the Council Grants program, and I do know that they've lodged an application which hasn't been assessed or considered at this stage, but that's also a benefit of having that slight removal. It means they can remain eligible for the grants program.
Okay. So, Director, can you perhaps guide me on this? Do we move that as an amendment to have? Yes.
Councillor Harvey's happy with that.
Councillor Harvey, you happy to move that?
Councillor Harvey's happy. Can you just remind me what I'm happy about though?
Just to have the chair of this committee attend that working group and then report back to this particular committee on...
To request.
Yeah.
That's fine. Then if the answer is yes, go.
Yeah. If the answer is no, I won't. Yeah. Okay. Everybody happy with that? Have somebody move that amendment?
Yep.
Yep. Thank you, Alderman Sexton. Okay, and just put that. Oh, sorry. Was that? Did you move that amendment, Councillor Harvey? Yes. Sorry, you did. Yes. Sorry about that.
The amendment.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So I've got the lot.
You've got the lot. Okay.
I got all the glory. Yeah.
Okay. Any dissent? No, I consider that unanimously carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Xavier, appreciated. Moving on to 6.4, can I have somebody move that be received and noted? Alderman Sexton, thank you very much. Any dissent? No, consider that carried. Community action status report 7.1, can I have somebody move that, please? Councillor Fox, thank you very much. Any dissent? No. Consider that unanimously carried. Any questions without notice? No. Being none, I can have somebody move that we close the open. Thank you very much, Alderman.